Welcome back to a new episode of the PCN Podcast. I am eKsiSLe, and alongside us tonight is going to be Loco.
Hello, everybody.
And of course, as per usual, Kaz.
Rock the Casbah. Rock the Casbah.
Jesus Christ. All right, so we'll just edit that out. At any rate.
What?
Tonight, gentlemen, we're going to talk a little bit about the preseason, obviously, that's going on right now, as well as you might notice that the leader of the podcast currently is not present. He is currently on a trip. But the bottom line is we want to talk about the preseason. So, fellas, talk to me about what your the surprise outcomes that you didn't foresee happening, and, crazy things that happened in the preseason cup at least.
Well, I was shocked with losing to Liverpool the way we did at Milan. We got up 1-0, and you think in a preseason game, especially in the preseason cup where people are still finding their chemistry, getting up on a team 1-0 and pretty much not allowing them to get any chances. I was very surprised, but Soccer FJ, going off his reputation, man, he gets just a little bit of room and he put it top corner, and just like that, they're back in the game. So that's my first surprise.
My biggest surprise is probably, eKsiSLe, you can probably talk to this, that the slaughter that ensued, there's no other way to probably word it, that the 10-0 that you gave NYCFC in a preseason match is pretty, I would say, embarrassing as a club. I don't think anyone wants to lose 10-0, but I'm sure you can go into detail about what happened with that game.
Yeah, so credit to Ace, Online Ace, for bringing out a team. Obviously he was trialing during that time period, so he just took over. I think he's co-manager, Kaz. Is that the case, or is he the manager? I can't remember.
He's the co-manager.
Okay, so they were trying to trial, and I know that prior to us sending, he had lost his right back. The guy quit the game before. So tensions were already pretty high for the team. And I know that they were going up against us, which obviously is not going to be great. Not saying we're all that good, but, on reputation alone, it can be a little bit much to take on, especially when you're a new team and playing with new guys. So they came out and they weren't very good, if I'm honest, as a team. And that's tough because you're going against a team that has been playing well together. And we ended up going up 1-0, and then, we were moving the ball really well. They were not, and we broke through. And Fuddy, was streaking onto goal, and one of their center backs, I can't remember which one, but he slid and took out Fuddy from behind and got a red card. And when you're down 1-0 and you already get a red card, that's difficult enough to come back from. But about 5 minutes later, they do the exact same thing again, but this time from the left side. And so the other center back slides, gets a red card. So then you're scrambling. And to be honest with you, they had 4 or 5 guys quit out. So it was at that point, throwaway game. Honestly, it was crap. We just dribbled around them. They have bots that were doing absolutely nothing. And so it was, it wasn't really even fair, but it also wasn't as bad as it seems. It's just, Ace, I'm sure, will put out a decent team this season, but it's disappointing to see that happen to them on the first night.
Looking at the table, though, or not the table, the results from that night, there's some results that really stand out to me because they have some ramifications on Super League and how you gauge these teams' strengths.
Mm-hmm.
And one of them for me is Monaco beating Celtic 1-0. By all accounts, they were making a very nice squad over at Celtic. Not putting anything against Roshi, because he's also putting a very nice squad together at Monaco, but Celtic had some heavy hitters in there that night. They had Eriksson, Vicious, and Bemst, who, from what I understand, are on the move. Another one that pops out to me is PSG beating Galaxy 1-0. So we have a League 2 team beating a Super League team, and both, by what our numbers are showing, is PSG is being predicted to be bottom half of League 2 and Galaxy possibly mid-table Super League. So that's another one that sticks out. And then the last one for me is Watford 1-0 over Ajax. Every time we've played Ajax in preseason, it's been a good game. And then I don't really know much about Watford. I know it's a new manager.
Mhm.
So, another big surprise for me.
Yeah, and I mean, it is preseason. You don't want to jump on everything too early and just say, "Oh, well, this is going to be terrible." But as you said with Celtic especially, I mean, that loss preemptively made three or two of their players on the move or available to go to other teams because they didn't do well in a preseason cup. So it's pretty funny to see how many people jump ship or look to other options just because of one bad game day. But
Mhm.
definitely something to look into.
Well, and that's not something that is foreign to any league really. But when you look
Oh,
at
never.
Super League, I mean, honestly, when a team after the first week, if you can survive the first week and a half, I think the team will be fine. But if you can't, and you lose a couple of games and things start to slide, the top talent is going to start looking for other teams that are not floundering, and it becomes a bit more difficult. And honestly, I think that's in part why we decided to change the transfer rules a few seasons back, because it was just it's such an odd experience that everybody says, all the good teams say, oh, it's still really early. It's still really early. Even if they lose a couple, like we lost the first game of the season last season, right? We lost to Torino, as has been spoken about a lot on this podcast and obviously about the memes and all that crap. But, we lost that game, and it's bound to happen. But teams like ours, will fight back, but other teams might not. And if you lose a game like that to a team that you're supposed to beat, often that can make or break a team. I don't recall ever having seen it in a preseason cup where, the team loses and suddenly it's a disbanding of the team. I mean, that is an odd one, but it happens, and you just have to move on. As far as my surprise moments, I think, and it's not really a surprise. I mean, obviously, Sporting is a very good team, but the fact that they were able to put aside Swansea and obviously Loco, I think you can talk about this a little bit more than I can, but the fact that they were able to get past a team with some proven players on Swansea is, obviously it's a change for them, and it's good to see them doing well. But can you speak about that game and what might have happened?
Yeah, definitely. I think Sporting in this league should definitely start getting their due respect. I think a lot of people undermine them and undermine their achievements in the league, and for playing against them multiple times in LNL and other leagues associated with PCN, and even in this preseason cup especially. I mean, they're a really good team. There are a lot of players who are also proven, but also players who are on the up and coming as well. We played them. We played them well. We made one mistake and they capitalized on it. But a team like that, you can't make a mistake against, and that's their bread and butter. You give them one inkling of space, and they'll take it and they'll score against you, and that's exactly what they did against us. And it was 1-1. They took us to penalties, and we lost in penalties. So at that point, we were like, you know what? It was penalties. So be it. But for them to be an L1 side and to prove to us, at least at Swansea especially, that they can hang around with some of these really good teams in Super League, I think it's about time that we start giving Sporting some well-due respect.
Sure. I mean, after you all lost to them, they played against my team in the next round, and it was actually a really well thought out game. We ended up beating them 1-0, but I mean, in reality, when you look back, if I don't know if anybody watched the stream, but and my stream is available if you want to go to it, but they actually had 2 or 3 really solid chances, including one where RVP is in the box, pretty close to the 6. He gets the ball, takes a turn, shoots, and Dre just does what Dre did, and he makes a save. Point blank range save, and RVP could not believe it. In fact, he tagged him in the Discord right after and was just like, "Wow, I have no idea how that didn't go in. I was already about to go celebrate. Like, that's how sure of a thing that was." And Dre just stonewalled him, which was great. But and we were fortunate to score. I mean, we moved the ball really well against them. We are a very good, potent offense, but they are a very good side, and you're exactly right. I think the only thing that I question is whether or not they're enough as far as structure. They don't move particularly well as a unit, and I think that could cost them. But they have good defenders; they'll figure it out. So It's good to see them doing well. I don't know that I believe the idea that they would be a top 3 Super League side. I would think that yes, they'd be at least top 6, at least.
I was going to say top 6. I would agree.
But top 3, I think that's not giving enough love to the people or teams who are already up there in Super League. You know, that disregards the Swansea team, even though they lost. It's preseason cup, so they have a lot of chemistry to build on, and so I don't think that it's fair to necessarily say top 3, but top 6 I think is. I think that's accurate, and so it's good to see them doing well. Let's lay off them a little bit. I think if they win League One and then they get up to Super League, we'll see what they can do next season.
Here's the thing about Sporting, and I've made my comments about them in the past, but what we're looking at now with them is, since the middle of last season, they've had relatively the same team.
Mm-hmm.
And chemistry is building. Loco and I were talking before the podcast about teams with an upside. Sporting has an upside, and that's scary. Personally, as playing against RVP, marking him, Evan Davids as well, I've never personally marked World Tales really because we don't play in the same areas on the field. Those guys know what they're doing. They know how to find space where there usually isn't, and if you give them that space, they will score. One thing I noticed about RVP is like his ability to read the field. He last night in the draft, he anticipated a bundle. I had no idea how he decided to be where he was, but he was there and he scored because of it. And as the rest of this team comes together, as that back line gels, as these DMs gel, they have a huge upside. So it's going to be interesting to see. I do think they are a very good squad and will be able to handle themselves in Super League. So, we just have to let it play out and see how they do, and watch it all go. It's great to see a kind of like a new team in PCN. We haven't had a few of those in a while, and I feel like they're going to stick together for a while as well. So.
Yeah, and moving on, do we think that Watford, who is another team that did really well in the preseason cup, do we think that they have any roadblocks in League Two? Do we think that they're going to run away with it? And do they have anybody who is going to stop them?
I think it's sad to say, but I think it's a foregone conclusion that Watford's going to win L2. I think Leipzig might give them a little bit of a push towards the back end of the season, but I mean, like you said, you look at how they're doing it in the preseason cup, and then you look at that roster as a whole or who they're trying to bring in.
Mm-hmm.
I don't foresee them hitting any roadblocks in their ways of getting that L2 title.
Okay. Kaz, who are their notable players on Watford? I know Aquatic Bacon is there. Can you tell me a little bit about their roster? Do you know?
Well, just looking at it, they've got Kerr 9, Falcao, KDB/Doyle now, ex-Pancake Waffle, and Jose Bangs are the ones that I recognize.
Okay.
I've heard the name Diego, but I don't personally can't speak to him. The thing about, Kerr, Doyle, Falcao, Pancake, these guys have been in the league a very long time. They've been up and down in all the leagues, and so they know how to play, I guess, the PCN style. And that is a huge advantage when you're down in League Two. There's a lot of League Two teams, they're establishing their tactics and strategy, and they're working on the possession game and stuff like that. And they may not necessarily have figured out, high press yet, because that's pretty much the key when you're up in Super League. We all know that Falcao and Kerr are great on the ball. And if you've got those kind of players, you've got game winners, down at Watford already. So it's going to make them very difficult to pick. I'm with Loco. Leipzig would be the team that I would put up against them. I think they'll probably be going at it from the beginning of the season, not necessarily at the end. But, I know Leipzig did get a later start on playing together than Watford. So that could factor into it as well.
And Leipzig has Abdeen, Yoshi, Hino. Who else is on that side? Loco, do you know who's on that team?
Off the top of my head, I do not. I can check really quickly though. I think, but yeah, you're right though. Abdeen, Yoshi, and even those two alone,
Yeah,
you're going to. I mean, those two alone right there in L2, I think they can definitely light it up, and that's why I think as they play longer together, like Kaz said, they had a short notice of getting together as a team and trying to gel. I think as they keep playing more and more, they're only going to get better, right? And I think that's the thing where as later on in the season, I think they're going to improve, and you're always going to hit a roadblock where goals aren't going to be coming as easy as they were, I feel like, in the middle of a season. And if Leipzig gets hot during that time where Watford might be hitting a lull, it could make it interesting. But overall, I think Watford pretty much have L2. It's theirs to lose, let me say that at least.
Pulling up their roster right now, two really big pickups that you might not hear about their names as much because they're not going to be scoring goals. Actually, three are Puyol, Patty Ducks, and Concept. Concept, a few seasons ago, could have easily won Tots at center back. Puyol has played for me multiple times. He's a rock solid defender, whether he's on the outside or center back. And Patty Ducks, we all know about him at DM. So if you got a DM like Patty Ducks down in Super League, you're starting off with a huge advantage.
Oh,
and then on top of that, you got Yoshi and Abdeen, who the 2 seasons they've been in the league were team of the season goal scorers in League One. So
that's right.
And he was able to make this work with a very, very slim new team budget. So credit to him for squeezing it all in there.
Yeah, and PDP Town at right back. We forgot about that. Or maybe center back, I guess.
Yeah.
Probably center back, right?
Yeah, he's moving to center back.
Yeah, they recently announced that signing. So again, that's another huge rock in your back line that's going to solidify you to keep clean sheets.
Yeah. And shout out to the PCN news team for having posted a bunch of these things, because that actually helps me, because I get to see, these transactions that take place. Obviously, I'm on the admin staff, so I see, some of these transfers, but it's good to get a rundown on some of these because it's an important piece. But yeah, Concept and PDP Town are actually cousins. So that's, I think, the driving factor of Concept and him reconnecting, which is cool. So, you play with people that you're comfortable with, and it usually works out well. So let's move on to the next topic, which in this case is one that I find to be interesting because it's Benfica, right? We've seen them go through kind of a roller coaster ride of Super League as of late. I mean, they had that one season where they went 13th, 12th, something like that. And then they skyrocketed up to second 2 seasons ago. Last season, they were in third. What do you guys think about their chances this season?
Well, I'm one that, thinks you can never write off Chuck. I know they had a bad season a few seasons ago. I don't remember exactly where they finished, but it was around mid-table. But I remember starting that season, it was really bad for them. And you mentioned earlier keeping players from bailing after that, and he was able to keep his guys there. Now an advantage that Chuck has is he's got long-standing players that are very, very loyal to him. And I think that's the question mark this season, as a couple of these guys are actually either not playing or left. Chuck has been working hard the preseason. I know he just purchased Jumanji from Milan, which was a late pickup, but a good pickup. And that kind of, with the timing of that purchase, shows me this may have not been the best preseason for him. Because usually Chuck's got his roster figured out a lot earlier. And so maybe there was a little bit of troubles finding the right strikers. So we'll see. I know he's still got Dino over there. He's still got Fayetteville, right? Both playing DM. So, and he brought strikers back. Mm-hmm. So there's going to be great defense back there. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I do think they'll struggle. This will probably be, and when I say struggle, I don't mean like get relegated or even bottom table struggle. I think this will be the first season where, if they do get in the title race for the top 6 race, that's a win for them based on having to rebuild an entire team.
So just a point of clarity here. They were in 13th in season 13, and in season 14 they went up to 8th. Just so we are on the same plane here. And Loco, what do you think they're going to do this coming season?
I kind of agree with Kaz. I think this might be a tougher season for them. Looking at their defense, I have no issues with looking on paper. Their defense, I feel like, is going to play well. But when you lose players like Seth, like Cage, and even Classy apparently is supposed to be leaving as well, those are big players that are hard to fill, And it's I know we said Jumanji's joining, but you can't, in a Super League, you can't rely on just one person to give you the goals, right? And I feel like looking at the roster, I'm struggling to see where they're going to find goals consistently.
Yeah.
And if Jumanji puts up these ridiculous numbers, then hey, more power to him. But I just don't see that being realistic in this Super League season. So I have them, I would say probably around 7 or 8 in this league. I think it's going to be tough for them. And I mean, again, filling those shoes, it would be tough for anybody, no less for Chuck.
Yeah. No, I agree. I don't know exactly where I put them because I do think that this is going to be a difficult season for them. And they are coming off a really good season. I mean, let's be honest. Really 2 good seasons back to back. I mean, they had second place the season before last, and then last season they were in third. So, they have made good strides and they have been consistent over the last 2 seasons. And I'm looking for them to do that again. But I think we're probably looking at a 5th or 6th, top 6 team. But, potentially they could drop out of that if the results don't go their way. But as you mentioned, if they do actually lose K24 Colossi, then, that's a big loss. I mean, I know he posted in the Discord that he was going to be a backup or a bench spot or whatever you want to take it. But even if that does happen, I mean, that's a big hit to their defensive core. Zoe Pound is a very good defender, so I don't want to take anything away from that. But still, I mean, you lose a guy like Classy, that's a big miss. So, we'll see what happens to them. And another team that is coming in, not necessarily a returning team, but a new team, actually, as a part of the Italiano podcast. If you listen to that, that's the most recent one. If you haven't listened to it, please go do it. It's wonderful. I think Cage put together quite the podcast or mini podcast for that one. But, in looking at that, Portsmouth has come into the league for that Juventus side. Juventus has been retired. Portsmouth comes in. Where do we think they're going to finish? Are we looking at a top 3 team in the making with Isco God on it? Do we think that's possible? Kaz, what do you think?
I don't think top 3 coming off the bat, just because of some of the quality teams that are already in the league. If you look throughout their roster, I don't think anybody that you look at on their roster right now would be considered not a top player.
Mm-hmm.
I think every single one of them are more than capable at their position. But this is their first season together in PCN. I'm not sure how many of these guys play together in ACL. And it is my understanding that a lot of these guys played together back on Man City at one point. But still, that's probably 2 FIFAs ago now. So, yes, you've got them all now. I've played against them. They seem to have a real defined play style, which is great. Will it be enough to break down the top defenses in the league? We don't know yet because we haven't seen them. Friendlies only say so much. And, in the preseason cup, they had some real tight results. They only beat Man City 2-1. Mm-hmm. Can't really say too much in that, but they're definitely not a team that I would sleep on. Definitely not. They did bring up Vate back in the Super League. Mm-hmm. So I think he's playing outside fullback in a 4-3-3, and they're not afraid to get their fullbacks forward. So it's going to be an interesting playing against them because they're running the conventional 3-5-2, which actually is really great for me. I'm so happy to see some new formations coming into the league.
Yeah. And I can speak on Vape at fullback, but Loco, what do you think they're going to do this season? I mean, I know that you have Swansea, and so you're looking to climb the table, but what do you think that Portsmouth is going to do this season?
I mean, I'm looking at the roster now, and they have a lot of depth, which is really good as well as a Super League team. I mean, And a lot of these depth players could be starting potentially for a lot of these other Super League teams, which is crazy to think about. I think they're going to be a very good team. I have a feeling that they're going to get hot some point in this season, and I think they're going to start riding that momentum and keep it going. I think. I probably would say I think they're a top 4, top 5 side. I would agree with that. I think you have 5, 6. You have Deering, you have Midget, you have Sir Graphics, you have Isco or Golden Panda, as we said before. Stride, they have players all over the pitch who at one point could create something out of nothing and do well for that team. And I think, like we said, with the unconventional 4-back, I think is also going to surprise a lot of teams and also give them a lot more creativity on the pitch as well.
If I had to say whether or not they'd be top 5, I think, or even top 6, I think they will. I think they have too good of talent to not be up there. And I think Midget, I don't know if he's a good manager. Frankly, I don't know. He was a good player for me. In fact, a great player, probably one of the best outside mids in the league. Obviously I have to say Cage now because he's taken his place in my side. But, Slick Joey, Slippery Joseph, as he's affectionately known, in my side, or quarterback Midget, because of his set piece prowess. He will be very good in the field, but we'll see how he leads his team. I'm not sure. And moving on, do we think that Leeds is going to do anything now that Jack is taking it over and the Brits are trying to invade once more?
I hate to bring it up, but it's probably the elephant in the room everybody's thinking about the second we speak of Jack and the Brits coming back, and it's the hosting situation.
Mm-hmm.
It is going to be very interesting for me how they cope with not being able to use anything but an East Coast host the entire season. Personally, I don't know what it's like to play on those delays, but there's a lot of people in the league that think had they not been able to host in Europe the seasons they were in the league, that they would not have been as good as they were. Obviously, they disagree. And, we all know the talent of some of these guys. We all know Jack, goalkeeper team of the year. We all know Body, what he's capable of. And if you went down the list, if you've been in PCN or ACL or VFL long enough, you know all these guys. Haven't seen them in a while, most of them in a while. So have they been playing? What kind of chem do they have? It's hard to pick. I mean, looking on paper, yes, great team. Will they be able to put it together? That's a different story.
Yeah. Loco, what do you think? Have you seen them play before? Do you know many of the guys on the team? What are you thinking?
So I haven't really seen a lot of them play, but I remember, like Kaz said, though, I think the big thing is that they're going to have a chip on their shoulder, right? I think a lot of times because a lot of people discredited them because we were saying, oh, that was before the East Coast host rule was implemented, and we were playing on that delay that they've been playing on for so long now. If the roles were reversed, they wouldn't have been as high or they wouldn't have been as good as what they were. So I think with that being said, they definitely have a chip on their shoulder. I know Jack is going to do his best to make a competitive team. He's a very competitive person. I'm sure everyone knows that by now. By seeing how he talks in the Discord about himself and his teams that he plays for. But I think, again, I think they have something to prove, and I hope they prove us wrong, honestly. I hope they do well this season.
Yeah, I think they will.
Yep.
But I don't know. We'll see. I do want to dispel a common misconception. They did not host from Europe more often than not. Kayla was actually their host. So I don't want anybody to think that they were hosting from Europe. At least that's what they told the league. We didn't validate that every game was hosted by Kayla, but she is also going to be on that team again and is planning on hosting for them as well. So, I mean, that is a thing that is likely to happen. Yeah, so I don't want to get caught up too much in the hosting thing. Obviously, with the East Coast hosting now, we're not going to be allowing that anymore, so that's not going to be an issue for people in the league. And I've played on 100 ping. It's pretty trash, if I'm honest. Yeah. But it's not terrible, because if you just figure out when to preload and you can do all the things that you can do, the only thing it really impacts is going to be the skill moves. So players like Zadilin and Bailey Ince, if he comes back, I'm not sure that he's going to, but if he does, those guys are incredibly talented. I mean, really, really good. It's essentially like an RVP of Europe. So those guys are going to come in and dominate, so they think. I guess we'll find out.
I will say this. I met with Jack before he took over Leeds, and we had a really good discussion. And, he was very enthusiastic and very easy to work with. There were and promised me there would be no trouble with hosts. I have no reason to not trust Jack. He's never done anything for me not to trust him. And the people that I know him well speak highly of him. So what I do hope is that we do not have drama around this the entire season. I hope all the managers work with Jack and this team just like they do with all the others, and not accuse them of hosting every time somebody has some lag. Not accuse them of hosting in Britain every time has some lag. And let's just follow, let's have a good season. Let's all work together and make sure that they have the same good experience as everybody else.
Sure. So let's move on to the preseason cup final. Okay, we talked about the preseason cup. Now we've gone through all of the things, all the games. The culmination has built up to the final, and it is Real Madrid versus Orlando. Now, when you look at those two teams, obviously those are going to be two great teams facing each other based on talent alone. But if you're talking about the preseason cup, I would be remiss if I do not bring up the preseason cup dreaded curse, right? Everybody talks about it, but it's a completely ridiculous thing. But, people still worry about that. So what is it about the curse? Do we think it's a real thing? And will this be a good game?
I think the thing with the curse is that traditionally, up until about the last few seasons, a lot of the top teams didn't take the preseason cup as seriously. Also, in the past, it wasn't mandatory to play. So we had teams winning it that were probably putting out their first teams while other guys were trialing teams. The top teams now in this league are so competitive that they want to win everything, Mm-hmm. So Real Madrid, Orlando, Portsmouth, Benfica, all these guys, you guys were all putting out your best sides and treating it as if it's a real cup, which it is. And so I think last season the curse didn't hurt. I believe either Benfica or Orlando won it last season. And
well, they didn't win,
they both had fine seasons.
But they didn't win the league. The curse is that if you win preseason cup, you will not win the league. I think the only one to have ever won both is going back to the Young Boys season. What was that, 14 or 13?
So are you throwing the game? Is that what you're saying?
No. What I'm saying is I don't believe in the curse. Although I will say this: season 12, we won the preseason cup. We then won 28 games or so subsequent to that. We didn't lose, I should say. We didn't win all those, but we only drew like 3 or 4 during that time period. So we went undefeated for 28 straight games, and then the last 10 lost 5 of those 10 to not win the title. Not saying that the preseason cup curse did that, but what I'm saying is that it certainly didn't hurt the preseason curse argument. That's all. I'm not really into curses. I don't think that's a thing. But, when you look at something like that, it's hard to say, oh, man, I really don't want to go through that again, if I'm honest. Now, I've won 2 preseason cups now, and I did not win the title any of those seasons, either of them. I did not win the preseason cup last season, and I won the title. So, I don't know. I'm not going to throw it, but let me just tell you that we have 4 or 5 starters that will probably be missing for the game, not because of anything planned, because we also have something we're going to talk about later, which is the Community Shield final. So we want to take it as seriously as possible because it's going to be a precursor to that. So for me, we're not going to throw the game, but we will certainly be inhibited by a lack of players. But we have guys who are ready to come in and do bits, so I'm not too worried about it.
I will say this, that we need to make special note of this game because, in my opinion, Orlando and Real Madrid are the very, very strong favorites to win the league.
Agreed.
It's going to take a lot from a lot of teams or a monumental collapse from both of these teams for somebody else to win the league. That's just where these teams are at. It's not a knock on anybody else. So let's just see. Whoever wins this, do they win the league? We'll see.
And, to go off of that with the whole curse of the preseason cup, I think what's done it a lot of times for these teams is that when you win the preseason cup, I feel like it's putting a target on your back, especially as a team, Teams look at that and they say, okay, well, Benfica won this. So every time that we play Benfica from now on, we got to bring our A game. We got to try our best to take as many points as we possibly can in a game day against that team. But I think, like Kaz said, with Orlando and Real Madrid, those are two teams that, if you were to bet, I would say have the best odds to probably beat this quote-unquote curse, whoever does end up winning this preseason cup. So it'll definitely be a great game and interesting to watch.
I'm not nervous about the cup. I'm not nervous about the curse. But who won the preseason cup last season? Do you know right off the bat, Kaz? Was it not Leeds?
I believe it was Leeds.
Okay. How did they finish last season? Do you know?
Top 6?
Oh, barely. Yeah, barely. Tough. I mean, they almost fell apart halfway through the season. Of course, that's not fair because Andressi was not even allowed to play for half the season, so that's fair. So, because I mentioned it, the Community Shield, fellas. Another final. Obviously, it's a home and away. No big deal. But it is Liverpool versus Real Madrid. What are we thinking there?
I think this is a great precursor for the season. You've got the defending champs versus the team that everybody's been talking about this preseason. They did come from League One, but let's not forget the fact of how deep this squad is. They've got Soccer FJ, who, if we counted League One and Super League goals together last season, he could have had the Golden Boot. I believe last time he played a full season in Super League, he did have the Golden Boot. And I believe he actually won the Golden Boot in League One before. So this guy just oozes goals. And coupled with the fact of the two DMs they have are quality. I mean, they got quality throughout. I said I was surprised we lost to them, but that's because we went up. They're a quality squad, and the goals they scored were brilliant goals. So I think it's a perfect introduction to the season. Like, if the Community Shield, that's what the Community Shield is. So now that we get to see this talked about team, and everybody's like, they're going to be great, and then maybe some people don't, to get to go against right now the best team in the league. It's a great opening to the season for me. It's going to be awesome to watch.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I think this might sound a little harsh coming from me though, but I think because it's a two-legged game, I think when it's two legs especially, talent outshines most of the game. I feel like that's where on paper the teams with the best squad end up winning. And if you were to do a combined 11 between Liverpool and Real Madrid, I would be pretty hard pressed to find a lot of Liverpool players that would crack into that team, honestly. I think Real Madrid, pound for pound, have the better roster, and I think with over two legs, I think they're going to show that, and I'm pretty sure eKsiSLe is ready to show why they won Super League last season and keep it going through this season. But again, I think it's going to be a good game. Obviously, it's FIFA. Anything can happen, but I would probably lean towards Real Madrid to get this Community Shield.
Yeah, obviously the favorites. I mean, you have to go with them. But a Liverpool win isn't out of the realm of possibility.
No, not at all.
Yeah, I mean, let's not forget that they actually knocked us out of the cup last season to get to the final that they ultimately forfeit, but to the Royal Cup. We could have won both Super League and the Royal Cup, and instead Liverpool knocked us out over two legs. It was not our best moment, but they outplayed us. They did a good job. So, I'm not going in thinking that this is going to be a game that is a walkover and And my players shouldn't either. It's a game that we've got to be prepared for. It's going to be difficult, especially given that we have some key players who are not going to be present. And it's a new team. We don't have Slippery Joseph. We don't have Walker. So those are two key pieces that we leaned a lot on last season, and we don't have them. So we'll see how it goes. I'm eager to play it just because it will be the first real competition of season 17. Obviously, you have the preseason cup, and that's lovely. But when it comes to the Community Shield, that's the first start for me of the season. Preseason is the preseason. Community Shield signifies the beginning of the new season, and that's what I'm looking forward to. And I want to start off with 2 wins, frankly. But we'll see how it goes. They're a good side, and who knows. But moving forward, how do we think, or how do we perceive that Super League is going to be? Let's do a pick'em time. Loco, what are your top 6 in Super League?
So if I had to pick a top 6 right now, I would probably, unfortunately, eKsiSLe, I would probably give Orlando number 1. I would give you guys at Real Madrid number 2. 3 would be us at Swansea. I'm going to back my team to the bitter end.
Fair enough.
4 would be Portsmouth. 5 and 6, 7. That's where I start to drop off, where you could probably pick a couple of teams. But right now, I think it's going to be probably Milan, Benfica, into those 5 and 6 slots.
Yeah, no, that's a great list. I mean, honestly, I don't think that mine would look too different as far as the teams that are occupying the top 6. You can jumble them around, but I'm backing my team as well. Obviously, I think my team is still ready to back up the fact that we were Super League champions last season. We did win the league by the most points ever won with 96. So we're losing a couple of key players, but we are coming back. And Orlando, let's not forget, I mean, they've rebuilt the squad by merging both of last season's Leeds and Orlando of last season. So this is not going to be a pushover game. Although I will say that Orlando is losing eKsiSLe, who was their primary goal scorer over the last 3-4 seasons. And he's gone. He's retiring. So who do they have at striker? They have Schmerda running left striker, and they have who at right striker? Who? Vols? Is it Vols going right striker with Andres?
I believe it is.
So
I believe it is Vols.
Yeah, and then you have perfect mode on the right, or excuse me, Sergio 8X or X8, and then who's their left mid? Is that going to be Money all season? Is he going to play the 38 or 36 that Lake mentioned today in the Discord? I don't know. But that team is obviously going to be strong. There is no doubt in my mind that will be a top 2, top 3 team. There is no chance they don't. With CM9, Lake, Wani. Wani's moving to LCB, though, so that should be an interesting transition. I'm eager to see how he does there. With Pep coming in and taking over that central center back position. Wani having never not played in the center for Orlando, I think is an interesting move. I don't know what that did to their team dynamics. Like I said, I'm not in their camp, but I know that Wani prefers the center, and I know that Pep prefers the center, and it seems like Pep won out. And that's an interesting call since they're merged together. When you look at those kind of marriages, you look at the concessions by each individual, and one of those concessions is going to be Dust being moved over to Swansea. I mean, that's a big concession for me, that you're willing to bring in perfect mode, but in that process, you eliminate one of the best outside mids over the last 4 seasons, playing on 100 ping in the previous seasons. Now, from what I hear, Dust has moved out of the Rocky Mountains and into a place where he has good internet. So, a guy who was on 100 ping is now going to be on sub 50. That could be a game changer as well. And Dust is not a pushover. He's a very, very good player. One that if I had known was available, I would have pursued him, to be honest. So when you look at that, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen with Orlando. I think they have the pieces to be great, right? You merge those 2 teams, the net is probably going to be great. The problem I see with that is that you have 2 unproven strikers. Schmerda's never played in Super League at striker. not for a long period of time. He has had spurts there, with Chelsea, with myself at Atlanta, and then, a couple of other seasons as well, I believe. In between left mid, left wing, he played some striker, I think, for Milan as well, and Cam. But he is not typically a striker. And Vols has been, he's gone from center back now to Cam for the last, 8 seasons or so. He's been Team of the Year caliber, almost Ballon d'Or. So you move him up to striker, and then you have Andressi, who's been one of the best passers in the league, save for Goatless, as far as volume. So pound for pound, yeah, he probably makes sense to be in Cam, but again, that's a different dynamic. You're throwing guys who are extremely good into an extremely good team, but they're all kind of in a mismatch place. When as a manager, I'm looking at that, not as just an opponent, but as a manager, I look at that and I think, from a baseline perspective, you should be putting players where they feel most comfortable. Now, that's one thing to say that you can put Vols at striker, right? He's played Cam behind Kessie. He plays Ultimate Team. I love the way he plays, so I'm sure at striker he'll do fine. But you're taking that player and moving him to striker. You're taking Schmurda from outside mid or left wing and putting him at striker. You're then putting 2 players who don't play with their Cam very frequently or haven't, and now you're putting him there. And then you have Money, who's been kind of in and out of his own lineup, much like myself. So it's an interesting dynamic, I think, from the back all the way to Schmimpy at goalkeeper. So my point is, Orlando could be a great team. They could. I mean, they have all the great pieces. All of those players are incredible players. And then I do think Swansea, and I'll stop talking because I think you guys will want to. But with Swansea, I mean, you guys have a great team as well. You have a great group of players. You have Dust, as I mentioned. You do have Seth, who's come in from Milan, and he was at Benfica as well before or after that. But can you talk about your strikers? Because that, I think, is where I would like to find out more. Because you had Vape, who was your Golden Boot winner and obviously the leading scorer. He went to play fullback in Super League. So who is it? I mean...
So I know you were just talking about having like a mismatch of positions and stuff like that, but we wanted to have someone who we knew up top who could also score, but also make the team better and move the ball quickly in our team. And so we have Dust playing up top, actually.
Sure.
And we have Dewey coming in to play next to him. So those are going to be our 2 strikers. And then we have Bell playing outside mid, who Bell has been a very versatile player throughout his entire career, playing CB at one point, I think personally was one of the best CBs at his position. And then moving to outside as a very versatile skill set where he can help our team as well. So I think personally with us, it's just a matter of getting that offense running. I hope we can. We have recently. And the good thing about our team, especially when you look at the roster, we have a lot of guys who are really like just genuinely good guys. We come into the lobby and we start laughing, we start talking. But when it comes to game time, we're serious and we're ready to go. But if anyone messes up or something happens, we're not pressed about it. We're not going to be screaming at each other saying, why would you do this? How did this happen? We go back, we talk about it. We sit in a lobby usually after our games for 30 plus minutes, just talking about the games and how we can improve. So I think with us especially, I think our team as a whole, I'm excited for what we have going forward. I just hope I'm not proven wrong. That I hope we get at least top 3. That would be ideal.
Sure. Yeah, Dewey and Dust have been playing co-op together for a very, very long time. If you've ever seen them, it's insane. It's insane. I did try Dewey at striker once on my team when he played for me at Chelsea. He's an incredible player. I mean, he has vision. He's very good on the ball, off the ball, can win the ball back high up the pitch, which is why I wanted him up there. So no, he's a very versatile player, and he'll be, I'm sure, great for you all. Kaz, what do you think as far as the top 6? Does that sound about what you're going with as well?
I'm not sure. You just gave me a very thorough breakdown on all the things wrong with Orlando, so thank you. Oh, I'm gonna do what I did last season. On the preseason stream last season, I sat here and was the only one that said Real Madrid is gonna win, and this was why. Orlando was at the top the season before. Um, they brought in a couple players, but they were at the top. Where can they go? You went out with Real Madrid and brought in Stone, moved Footy to striker, brought in center back. I don't remember the details of the moves, but your team improved. So for me, logic with the amount of players that you brought in versus the fact that their team, aside from players getting better, wasn't really going to improve. I picked Real Madrid to win. This season, not that you didn't make any moves, but, Orlando at a very basic level for me, without knowing how wondering about if Wani's an LCB, just going off the quality of the players that I know, I believe they identified holes in their game. I talked to a few of the players. I'm not gonna repeat some of these conversations, but there were concerns with their roster last season, and I believe that's where the Leeds merger came from. They wanted to fix the things that their team thought needed to be fixing.
Sure.
We've seen Wani's CCB stats. Now imagine them at LCB stats.
Yeah.
Now, can he be over aggressive at LCB and that cause an issue? I don't know. But so obviously there's always a dice roll when you move that many players around. Will they take about half a season to get their chem going? Don't know. But I'm gonna go with Orlando number 1, Real Madrid 2. Real Madrid, obviously that front three, phenomenal. You did lose Joey. So he's a tough replacement, but as a top manager, I have no doubt that you can bring in the proper replacements. Kind of the same thing. Money's the manager of the year, no doubt. So following up at 3, I had Swansea, because basically every player that left Orlando and Real Madrid went to Swansea. And then they bring in, Loco, Vape, all these guys who we know are top players. If these 1 and 2 teams didn't have DM locked down, Loco would probably break into them. And among other positions, when we all know Bell, we all know Midget, all these guys, top players. So that's it.
Well, they went to Portsmouth. Vape,
my
Vape
bad.
also went to Portsmouth, but that's okay.
I had Swansea. I had a little mix-up.
No, you're good. I understand. You're not wrong. Although I do want to clarify that I was not trying to tell you all the things wrong with Orlando. My point is they are a very, very good side. I don't want DMs or anybody in my mentions talking about how I was shitting on Orlando. That's not a thing. They are an incredible team, and I would not be surprised if they win the league. I would not. You put together Pep, who is arguably one of the best center backs in the league, with Wani, who is arguably one of the best center backs in the league. You could put me at right center back, and they would be incredible at defense. I mean, that's how good they are. Now you put Schmimpy in the back. He's a very, very good goalkeeper, and I think that's one area that they've been really struggling in is goalkeeper, because they have had carousel of guys coming in and out. Strikers 98 was there as well, but that is a position that if they lock down Schmimpy for a longer time, that's great. I don't think that Orlando is going to be bad by any stretch. In fact, like I said, they very well may win all 38 games with that roster. I have no idea, because I rate Schmerda very highly. I rate Vols extremely highly. I rate, Sergio X very highly. Their DMs are unquestionable as far as their talent. And then I just mentioned that their center backs could have me back there and defend like they are going out of style. So to me, I'm not trying to say that they are going to be bad. All I am saying is they have new guys. And you could look at my roster and say the same thing. It could be a toss-up season for us.
No,
sure.
the big thing in me, especially with Real Madrid, is even you said Exile and Kaz as well in the mini cast. It's hard to repeat in this league. It's not easy by any stretch of the imagination, and it's been hard for a long time, and it's been proven throughout the time that repeating is not easy. And I also heard, Exile, I don't know if you want to talk about this or not, but I've heard you're also willing to work with a formation change as well with your team. And that's going to be also, like we said, whenever you run a four back, that's always going to promote new avenues or new ways of attacking an offense.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
I think that as well, while changing your formation, if you're going to, I don't know if it's set in stone yet or not. Obviously, you're the only one who knows that. But I think also, like you said, with some of the moving parts that you have, obviously you might not have as many as Orlando, but you still need to get new players in and reacclimate them to your style of play and how they can perfect their style of play to help you and Real Madrid as a whole.
Mm-hmm. Kaz, what can you tell us about Milan?
Well, I can tell you that it's a completely new team. Jigsaw and I talked during the England tournament, and I really liked his manager style. I was thinking about stepping down. I had talked with Mob going into last season. He said he could bring Brown Panther, Casper, and himself over. And I've played with Brown Panther a few times, and him and I at DM kind of seemed to work. And so we started the process. And Jigsaw being Jigsaw, he gives us clips, and he tells us when we do stuff wrong. So for the first time in my PCN career, I'm learning from somebody that is showing me, hey, Kaz, this is where you messed up. And he's doing this for all the players. And we were able to rope in Koof, and now we got Ramos at anchor, CM28 at outside CV. So it's a completely new squad. Now, some of us have played together, some of us aren't. The one thing we all have in common is we all like the style Jig wants us to play.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really going to just happen. It's going to be how fast can we come together. We've had some games where we look phenomenal. We gave Portsmouth a good game. We give Swansea a good game. But, I find with most teams, it's getting that final ball. The defense, you get it together. The midfield, you get it together. But when you get around the 18, it's that who's going to do that final ball and break down those defenses. And I think that's kind of where we're at this point. I think, going up against the rest of the league, I do think that I think we are favorites for top six for sure. But, we have to execute. That's a lot of talk. And if we don't score goals, then, it might not happen. There are some very good teams in the top 10. Loco and I were kind of talking about where the drop-off is.
Mm-hmm.
And, Leeds, Torino, Liverpool, these are all very, very good teams. So I think the competition for the top six is going to be really, really tight. So, I mean, I can say us number 6, that's because it's my team, but Leeds, Torino, Liverpool, all very well could get it, even over Portsmouth and possibly Swansea.
Yeah. I mean, at this point, quite literally anything's possible. I mean, we don't have any idea. I mean, Real Madrid, Orlando, Portsmouth, we could all go out there and shit the bed. Swansea, we could all go and lose, unless we play each other, but we could lose. Who knows? It's still FIFA at the end of the day, and FIFA does what FIFA does, and hopefully, it doesn't, but you never know. You never know. So we've talked a lot about Sporting already, so I don't want to really dwell on what they've done, but moving to League One, who then challenges Sporting for that top title in League One, and what does the top 6 look like for you, Loco?
So the top, I don't know about 6. I would probably do 4, maybe 5. I would say for League One would probably be, I would say Sporting. I think they deserve their respect at this point. I don't foresee them having too many hiccups in League One.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're a great side, and they're only going to get better, which is kind of a scary thought to think of. But again, we talked about them already. So Sporting number 1, I would have them. Bayern, I think, can give them a run for their money, though. Bayern, from what I'm hearing, they're trying to get Eriksen and Bims to join their team to link with Rick. And I think that could be a very formidable offense, or a potent offense at least, especially in L1. So I think Bayern could potentially give them a good run for their money. A dark horse who I have at number 3 could be Arsenal. I think with my time being in L1, I think Arsenal was a very good team. They've played really well with each other. They play really good possession, and they get to move the ball quickly and work with one another. So I think they would probably be my number 3. And then Chelsea, number 4. And probably for 5, I would say Barca. I think Barca played well in the beginning of L1 last season. They played good towards the middle, and then they faltered a little bit towards the back end. I think a lot of people were surprised that they didn't end up making a good push for the playoffs in L1. I think a lot of teams expected them to be in the final for that push, them and Sporting. And, I think they have something to prove, so I hope that Barca gets back on track.
Yeah. Kaz, what do you think about the top 4?
Well, just to sound off of what Loco said, I think Sporting, coming off of the last 2 trophies for PCN, is primarily the Sporting team. So to not name them the favorites in League One would be undermining them, as they would like to remind me. But no, seriously, they deserve it at this point, to be called the favorites. They brought in old Mr. Peanut at center back, who is an ex-team of the season player in Super League and has won titles, if I'm not mistaken. Correct me if I'm wrong. And they've got Rio in the back as well. Bulldog and Chaboy, excellent midfielders. Chaboy has moved up from center back, for those of you that don't know. So they've got the depth. The depth that I mentioned they may not have in the past. I believe they've gone out and they've gotten the right pieces. So kudos to Messi for being the super manager over there. Bayern Munich, I'm gonna put Bayern and Arsenal and Atletico in a little bubble, because I think all 3 of these teams have a huge upside if it comes together. Bayern is still trying to get a couple of those pieces back together. Yes, they do have the opportunity to get Bimst and Eriksson, but unfortunately Eriksson and Bimst both won Super League Team of the Season last season, so that's not going to be possible. But just getting one of those players, I mean, Bimst was a 30-goal scorer in Super League, and so is Eriksson. I mean, those guys are phenomenal. So just to put one with a guy like Rick, who makes great runs and can finish, that's a big leg up in League One in itself. I don't know much about their defense, but I can tell you that Ronaldinho and DM is going to be clamps. And, I mean, they're just a great team all around. Arsenal, I've played with them a lot lately, like in BYOT, and I got drafted, and their DMs, cams, and strikers all have probably some of the best chemistry in all of the league. And they have a system, and they go through it, and they play it well. Which I think in a League One scenario is a huge leg up. They kept most of their team from last season, and from what Daniel said, they've gone out and they've gotten those pieces as well. And then Atletico is kind of the same thing. Oswald, in my opinion, one of the top managers in the league. He knew very early last season what he needed to do better to bring Atletico to the top, and he's picked up somebody, or brought back, Noid Click, and he's had primarily the same team together for an entire season. So, and they did well in the preseason cup as well. But I say on a bubble because all 3 of those teams, if those pieces come together, we were just kind of talking about it with Super League, it could all come together, but it can all fall apart. So if these 3 teams, if it all comes together, they can explode. They could actually knock off Sporting. Will it be tough? Very much so. But at the same time, if one of these pieces doesn't pull together like the manager's expecting, it'll drop them right back down the table. So, and then, you got Chelsea, who's a dark horse as well. They're on every night. They're bringing in some good players, and I think they're going to be in the mix for sure. But I don't think their upside is as much as Bayern, Arsenal, and Atletico. And Sevilla is, Twisted's been putting that team together for a long time. They're always solid. They're always in the mix. So to write them out of the top 6 would just be irresponsible at this point.
Yeah.
So the top 6 is going to be a battle. I think the playoff battle, it's going to be tight. It's going to be an intense League One season, and it's going to be exciting.
Could not agree more. I think that you guys have nailed it. There are a lot of good teams beyond just the initial depth of Sporting and Bayern, and Sevilla was going to be my dark horse as well. So, one other team that we haven't talked a lot about is Everton. In the first round of the preseason cup, they shellacked the team 6-0. So I don't know if they're going to be a top 6 team and make the playoffs or even contend, but that's a team I'll be keeping an eye on because Jason and co are, they're really cool with how they're putting together this social media setup. They're doing all the videos afterward. They're making things that other teams just aren't, and I think that's cool. AC Milan is doing something similar, and I want to give them credit as well, but I'm actually quite proud of what Everton is trying to accomplish, and hopefully they do well.
Absolutely. I didn't know that, but that's very, very good points.
Yeah,
kudos for the managers to take the time to do that.
Yeah, I did see. I think they do like weekly recaps of their games and stuff like that, where they have like commentaries and stuff like that. It's really interesting. I watch it periodically when I see it get posted in the Discord because, like you said, Exile, it's nice to see that people are taking that initiative with their team and creating something special with that team that they're given.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I mean, that's how I feel about it. I watch them all. I think it's cool because I like hearing the parties. Much like my team, they include the party chat, so it's like everybody is talking, and you can hear their dismay or their excitement. So you kind of feel like you're a part of that experience, which I know a lot of teams don't like that, don't like to have the chatter mixed in. But for me and my team and that team, obviously, to me, it makes the experience a window into what the team goes through on a day-to-day basis. And when you lose, yeah, it sucks. I mean, because then other teams check out your stream, they can come in and troll you. And believe me, it happens from personal experience. Most teams, after we play, all of a sudden we'll lose and my viewer count shoots up to 20 plus. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, looks like the other guys found my stream. And then, they want to see me rage, which I do pretty frequently when things do not go my way because I'm that kind of passionate manager. And, so it's just, that's how things work for me. And being able to see that in Everton is really cool because you get to see and experience those game day vibes, which is always a good thing for me.
Yeah, and you know what? Even though, think about it for a free agent's perspective. If I'm a player that wants to go to that team, that's going to be an added plus for me to say, wow, look at this cool stuff that they're doing with an Instagram, with a YouTube account that's posting content like this religiously and on a good schedule too, where it's not like you're going to be missing out on a week because they didn't do the recap. They've been on the money doing this weekly recap, and I think it's a great thing that Everton's been doing.
Yeah, absolutely. So moving on to League Two. Big season for League Two coming up. You've seen the increase in their performance quality. They are not this redheaded stepchild of League One anymore. They are actually moving up in the world as far as quality. When we look at the team, we've spoken about Watford. So again, much like Sporting, I don't want to dwell too much on that. But who do we think is going to challenge Watford? We've talked about that earlier in the preseason cup portion, but is there another team besides Leipzig who are going to come out there and actually put a body on Watford and potentially overtake that top spot? Kaz?
Oh, I'm sorry. League Two?
Yeah, predictions for League Two.
Sorry about that. The positions for League Two for this season, Unislated's been putting this team together for a few seasons, and I'm going to go with him at Gladbach. In the past few seasons, he's been coming up short, but each season he's, put in one more, each of those pieces together. And this kind of goes back to how I view League Two, where these managers are trying to develop their team's identity.
Mm-hmm.
And Unisolated has that. He's got players that he's been bringing in one at a time to play under that identity that he wants out of his team.
Mhm.
And I think, bringing in, he's last season he had 2 team of the season players at League Two, and Red Ninja, and I'm forgetting his DM's name. I know Iron Patriot. I'm sorry, Iron Patriot was the DM. So to have those guys back, and he's also got Crimson Chaos down there. So I think they're going to be a force to be reckoned with. Rounding it off, because I think they're the clear favorites, if I'm being honest. Because the League Two got deleted. I had my League Two up, but it got deleted.
Oh yeah, no, that's fine. I mean, League Two looks like Watford is going to be the clear winner. I think we can all agree that that's probably likely. We also have a couple of other good teams. I mean, we know Leipzig. We know PSG is trying to put together a good team, as always, but we'll see what happens there. We'll see about the new team Porto taking over for Burnley. Not sure what's going to happen there, but you can't get relegated. But these teams are working toward building that identity, and hopefully they're able to do that. It is weird to see Lyon in League Two, if I'm honest. That is such an interesting, because season 13 they were up.
They were challenging for the title,
for the Super League title, and what a fall from grace Harry Pickle has done. And that happens. It happens.
Here's a team I don't want to write off though, and it's because they're so quiet. I'm not sure if anybody's even realized this, but DD Seoul, with Toronto, he's been down there a while. He was actually the guy that picked up Red Ninja initially and got him back into the league. But they've accumulated Seabass and CMDL down in League Two, who at one point last season I was trying to get CMDL as a outside mid for Monaco, and he was a huge part of Galaxy's minor success and working in the top of the table. Epic Fonzie is a goalkeeper veteran. You really can't go wrong with him, especially in League Two. And Seabass, I don't know if you guys remember him, but he was that
Super League
that breakout CB that just had ridiculous numbers under Online Aces team in Super League a few seasons ago and won a TOTS. So one thing I've always kind of talked about is in League Two is if you can get that defense in shape, you're gonna score goals. We saw from last season's TOTS in League Two that there were goals aplenty. So they're kind of like my dark horse. Obviously, Watford showed in the preseason cup they're going to be a squad. So my top 3 are definitely Watford, Leipzig, and Gladbach. And it's going to be one team I don't want to write off as Santa Clara. They always find themselves in the mix, and they have that strong faithful that always comes back, who a lot have actually been in League One or League Two. So if they decide to really go hard this season and get sweaty, you never know what they could put together.
And I think had a good season last season too. Sorry, Loco. Continue.
No, you're good. No, I agree. I was just going to bring up Leicester. I think Leicester is another team that if they catch fire, they can push for that top 3. Because we saw even in the team of the seasons, they had a couple of team of the seasons in there for players wise individually. So it's not like the talent's not there. It's just they have to make it work as a cohesive unit now. And I think to Kaz's point, especially in L2, it matters on your defense mostly. Goals are going to come. Goals are going to come at a plenty in L2. And I feel like the team that has the most stout defense is going to be the team that wins this league. Because when you are a team trying to build through the back, it's hard, right? And it's hard when you're conceding these goals, especially in this year's FIFA. You're not going to score 3-4 goals a game. That's hard to do in an 11v11 competitive match. So sometimes when the team can keep a clean sheet and just get these 1-0, 2-0s, these 2-1 victories to squeak by, that's what's going to be the difference maker between being a top 3 side in L2 and 4 and 5.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let me ask you all this. Do you think that the fact that there's no relegation changes a mindset in League Two.
Changes it how? Like they don't have the pressure? Is that what you're saying? They don't have added pressure?
Uh, does it give these teams the ability to play a little less? Like, 'cause we were talking about defenses, I actually brought it up. Do you think that's why these teams aren't so much concentrated on defense? It's like go big or go home type mentality, or?
No, I just think they're new. I mean, they're new to the league.
Yeah.
They're not seasoned in how defense is. When you're going to play drop-ins, name a player that's like, yeah, I totally want to play center back. That sounds awesome in a smalls match. There's nobody. So you don't have that built-in like, oh, I know how to defend in this scenario. Let me just build that up. I can take care of this. But then you have defenders in League One who have played in League Two as a defender, and they've built up that repertoire of knowing where to be, the angles they need to take, the positioning to break up the passes, intercept balls, whatever it is. They're there to learn. And so when you're green and you come in, you're not going to know all that stuff. So defense is going to be a little trickier, I think. Offense, everybody knows how to play offense in FIFA because that's what you always want to do, especially in pro clubs. But when you come into a league like ours and everybody has played offense always, defending is going to be the trick.
I also think when you're at the bottom of these tables, especially in L2, it's more of a case of when it rains, it pours kind of, right? I think eKsiSLe talked about this too, where the highs and the lows in the game, right? You concede a goal early on. It really tests your mettle, at least, or your mental state as a team of how you can recoup and get back onto this track of winning, right? Teams go through up and downs throughout the season, and it's how you recover from those ups and downs. You're not going to win every single game, and you're not going to be expected to win every single game. And I think, like we said, these new people coming into the league who might be green and they expect to just come in and batter this league, it's a shell shock for some of them. And I think a lot of the times it's a great learning experience of when you're losing, you look back and you say, why are we losing? Well, our defense isn't playing that great. We have the most goals conceded, things of that nature. And I think that only comes with experience, especially in L2.
Are you done now?
Good point.
Agreed, yeah. And we didn't really talk about any of the relegation fodder. I think that's been kind of a thing that we wanted to do, but at the same time, historically speaking, it usually ends up being a pretty negative experience. So do you all have any teams that you feel are definite relegation contenders?
In all of the leagues or just
Yeah.
L2?
I think when you're looking at all, well, it's only two leagues, right? So you're talking Super League and League One. Who are the definitive teams that you believe are going to be going down? I mean, the top one being like, say, Spurs, for instance, right? Do we think Spurs or NYCFC, right? I think is who I was thinking of. Those kinds of teams.
I would say NYCFC. I hope the preseason cup, like you said, that game was just a fluke. But if it's a telltale sign of what's to come for them in Super League, they're going to have a terrible time in this Super League season. I hope that's not true, but I mean, there hasn't been a sign to prove me otherwise yet. So I would say that they would probably be my top contending for being 20th in Super League.
Yeah, for Super League, and this is tough. So if you're listening to this and you're in one of the teams that we name, look, it's nothing personal, but
Yeah,
we don't have much to go off of. NYC losing to 10-0. That's huge. So you have to put them in there. Online Ace is a seasoned manager, and I know he's not afraid to drop people and pick more up. So I'm confident that he could probably get them out of relegation zone, even though they're not even in it right now because the season hasn't started. But I have to include the teams that were in the relegation fight last season, and that's Leverkusen and Lille. Lille wasn't quite there, but they were in the bottom of the table quite a bit. Leverkusen battled till the end. So those are going to be my teams. I thought about Marseille just because, they're newly promoted, but I've seen some strong performances out of them. Now we all know game day is different. It's completely different than than showing up for a friendly and beating Real Madrid, right? Than getting them on a game day when everybody decides to dial in.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I think so. Like my bottom four battle, so to speak, would probably be Leverkusen, Lille, Marseille, and NYCFC.
Yeah, I think you're right. I'll take that. And with that, I think we need to wrap it up. But thank you guys for having such a great podcast today. This has been actually really, really cool to go through all the teams and prepare for season 17. Is there any closing things you wanted to say before we wrap it up?
I just want to, wish everybody luck this season. I've made multiple comments about how I feel like this is like a turning point for PCN. And just take what we say with a grain of salt. I know some people, there's been some animosity in the Discord based on what comes out on these, and just know that like we're just doing this from an analytical standpoint, guys. We're not trying to hurt anybody's feelings or talk down on anybody. But and you know what? Use that. Put a chip on your shoulder and go prove us wrong, so you can say at the end of the season, Kaz was full of shit.
Yeah, I say that often. Well said, Kaz. Loco, what do you think?
No, I'm just excited for this season. I think as we go through these teams more and more, I'm excited to see how each season or each league it improves. We're talking about how Super League, we said it might be a 2-horse race, but you never know what might happen. But then L1, we said, there's a bunch of teams that can come in and do a great job, and that's a testament to the league growing. And I'm just so excited for another great season of PCN, and I know everyone else is chomping at the bit to get started, so I'm ready as well. So let's get it rolling.
And with that, we will call it a pod. Thanks, everybody, for coming out. Loco, Kaz, Cage, we'll miss you, but come back soon so we can get you on the pod. And good luck, everybody, for Season 17. We're out.
Night, everybody.